This is the next car that I've had that I haven't shown to the YouTube channel. Last time I took a look at the Starlet. Now we're taking a look at this Toyota Sera. It's from the late 80s, early 90s, Japan market only car. It's based off the Starlet's underpinnings and all are very similar engines. Very similar, but obviously the body's totally different. The party piece of this car is of course the butterfly doors. Ooh. With the glass tops. It's just the styling of the car overall is its party piece, but that's what really sets it apart and makes it super special. Any car you see, any supercar that has these kinds of doors, normally has the performance to match. You think of McLarens, Lamborghinis and all. They're not normal cars. This underneath is basically a cheap economy car, which is mental when you look at it. It's got a 4-cylinder 1.5 twin cam. I think they make about 100 horsepower. That's about it. Nothing special, no turbos, no superchargers, nothing like that. It's literally just an economy car that they went mental on the exterior and interior and just left the mechanicals alone. Obviously the most famous thing this car's known for is the doors. Gordon Murray himself said that in the McLaren F1, the design for the doors was inspired by this car, which is, I'd say, this car's biggest claim to fame. They're not very well known. They're produced in very small numbers. I think in total there was about 15,000 of them built just for Japan. And then I think of those 15,000 odd, I think about 5,000 were manual, which this one is. So this one is one of the rare manuals. Another big thing with these cars was they have what's called the Super Live sound system, which was a long line of Toyota doing really nice, well-engineered high-end sound systems, and it started with this car. So this car has a 9-speaker surround sound system with a subwoofer and an amp. It's got 2 tweeters there, a central speaker there, 2 in the doors, and then 4 across the back with what's called a sausage speaker. And the sausage speaker can rotate back and forth to give different sound into the cabin, whether it's indirect or direct sound. And I think it's called funky mode and casual mode, which I just love. All the wee details they put in this car, you can just tell. It was one of those times Toyota was obviously making loads of money, the height of the bubble economy, and they said, go take a Starlet and just make it mental. If you want to read up about the history and all of this car, I recommend it. There's plenty of videos out there. I think Doug DeMuro and all have done videos on them. They are pretty amazing cars, and when I started to find out about them, I fell in love with them. But the bad thing about a car that's made in such small numbers and so special, these aren't cheap. The price has been going up and up and up. A rough one that's on the road, they tend to go for about, now this is UK pounds, they're about 3,000, 4,000 for one that's okay. A nice one is 5,000 to 7,000 MOT'd on the road, and then one that's in really good condition I've started to see going for 10,000 plus, which I can't really afford. So I saw this one pop up on eBay. This was in the height of the 2020 lockdown. We were all inside, we were all itching to do something. I was bored out of my mind because there wasn't much happening, couldn't really go outside. I wasn't doing a whole pile with the cars, it just wasn't a good time for it. And it was when I was in university, so just focusing on schoolwork. And this popped up on eBay, and I thought, screw it, it's so cheap. Well, it was so cheap compared to the other ones. I didn't realise at the time, and the ad didn't really go into too much detail about how bad this car is. Looking at what some other people have paid for ones in similar sort of condition, I think I probably paid double what I should have, but it's in the past. The money's gone, what's done is done. I've got this, and we're gonna make something of it. So, let's first talk about what's wrong with this car. It's a long list. The biggest problem with this car is rust. All 4 arches are completely gone. I can just pull bits out of the arches. The sills, inners, outers, and inner arches as well are gone. They'll need a lot of work to bring them back to a reasonable condition. There's bits of rust all around the car. If you look in the bottom of the door edges, there's more. Inside the door jambs, even more. And then, because of the rust, fuel lines have gone. Brake lines are gone, so the car has no brakes. I did manage to get it to start at one point when I first bought it, but it doesn't start at all now because the fuel lines are gone. So as soon as the fuel pump runs, it just pisses anything that's in the tank all over the floor. So that'll all need redone. The one time I did have it running, the engine didn't sound too healthy. It was just smoking, sounded a bit rattly. So I think the engine is going to need a rebuild as well. It's one of those things, the car needs so much work and it'll need the engine pulled out for some of the rust to get fixed that I may as well tear the engine down and see what it looks like. Someone's put an air filter on it at some point that looks horrible. It's plastic, carbon fibre, and it rubs on the arches and is rubbed through the paint. It's lovely. But the good thing is the engine architecture with these shared with the Starlet. So parts are easy to come by. It is a 1.5, so it's a bit different, but in general, parts are easy to get. And if I wanted to go forged or turbo, there's lots of parts out there. You can get forged rods, pistons, you can get better head gaskets. Turbo kits are galore because of the GT turbos and glanzes that came with the 1.3s turboed. The 1.5s are very desirable for those guys because more displacement, more power. So that's one route we could go down with the car. The other thing is the interior's in shambles. The original radio's gone, which is a horrible piece to try and find. Because this has the Super Live sound system, if you want the sausage speaker in the back to rotate, you have to have the original stereo. I think there's one guy on the Sera clubs that has figured out a way to make it work otherwise. I might see if we can do that, or if I can just get a standard one. But even then, I know the standard ones, the LCDs, go in them after a while, and then you can't get the readout off them. So that's the biggest problem with these cars, is trying to find parts. If it was another car, sourcing 2 wings would be no bother. We wouldn't have to worry about that rust at all, because we could just buy 2 either reproduction wings or 2 original ones that are solid. But it is so hard to find anything for this car. Headlights, glass, trim, arches, anything, because a lot of them were imported into the UK and a lot of them rot like crazy because they weren't looked after. There was a long time where these cars were cheap and no one really looked after them, and this is the result. I think this car sat for about 15 years since it was last on the road, so it's going to be a lot of work to bring this back. I hope we can get it up and running and back on the road in a couple of years, but it's not one you're going to turn around in a couple of months, especially not if you're not doing it full time. So the big question for me is, what should I do with this car? in my head, I've got three choices. Choice number one, we do a faithful restoration. We try and find original parts where we can and make up the metal for the rest. You know, sand it all down, bondo it all up, make it look as close to original as we can. Respray the car in the original factory colour, try and find the factory SLSS, maybe try and find some new seats, although there were a few interior colours. These cars came in, so it is hard to find seats or anything like that. Again, the seats only came in this car. So try and find factory seats, rebuild the engine, try and find a factory airbox and everything to go back in, and MOT it, drive it around, take it to shows and enjoy it as Toyota intended back in the early 90s, as just a nice little cruise around. You've got a lovely glass canopy. I could sit and just cruise, you know, go on a few drives, take some trips maybe to Donegal, that kind of thing, and just enjoy the car for what it is. Very tempting. But my concerns with that route are trying to get the car to look right and trying not to spend too much money. Of course, I could send it to a body shop, tell them to respray the car, fix all the rust and have it looking perfect, but that'll probably cost me, the respray itself, if you want a nice respray, is 3 to 5 grand, and that's doing it pretty cheaply. All the rust work, I'd say it'd be 2-3 grand in itself, and then it would look good, but you're talking, it'd be close to 10 grand to do that. And I just don't know if I can afford it. And also, because the car would have had so much work done, I don't know if it would ever be worth that. Maybe in 5-10 years, but not right away. And you just sort of think you are burning money in a lot of ways. The other option is we go, the car's rotten. There's plenty of people bringing back original examples out there. It's not like this is the last surviving one, and it's in such rough shape. We just go, fuck it, and make it the most mental thing we can. So instead of spending money having it professionally welded up and restored, we spend the money on the engine, put 2-3 grand into forged internals, turbo kits, and then even see about putting an ECU and all in it. So we can then, like with a forged internals and a say TD04 turbo, this car could happily make 200 to 250 without breaking a sweat. I see people with these 1.5s forged and everything fully built making like 300 to 400 horsepower. So making 200 is no bother. And this thing only weighs, what, 900 odd kilos, so it would fly at that. And instead of trying to recreate the arches or trying to pay, because it could be 300, 400, 500 pounds for one good arch. Instead of trying to do that, we cut the rust out, tub the arches, and put a wide body fiberglass kit over it. I've seen some people in the Philippines are making kits. You could also try and get a universal kit and cut it to match. I've seen a few, I think I've seen one wide body one in Japan, and I've seen one render of one on Instagram. I wouldn't want it to have the bolt-on fender look. To be honest, I'm over that look. I don't really like it that much. It would be more molded in, try and follow the original lines of the car, but bulk it out and give it, you know, just a bit more of that aggressive appearance. What draws me in is this car has such incredible styling, and it looks like a little spaceship, but it has the heart of an economy car, and I would love to give it beefy tires, decent suspension. It's already got half decent brakes on it. They look like they're the same as the Glanzes. So there's plenty of options there for, you know, putting better pads and discs and all in. And then get the engine running about 200, 250 horsepower, so the thing would be a little flying machine. It would look fast and actually be fast. That's very, very tempting to me as well, but for a completely different reason. I worry we'd lose the soul of what Toyota made this car, and it wouldn't feel like the original car anymore. That concerns me. As well as, you know, it could ruin the ride, having the wide body, you know, wider tires and all, could make the car just feel totally different. But part of me feels like this is how the car should have come. It should have had special mechanicals to match the special exterior and interior. I don't know, I'm totally conflicted on what direction to take it. To be honest, I think money-wise, it'll probably end up being the same amount of money either way I go. I'll do as much of it I can myself and save as much money as I can that way. But it's what would we prefer the end product to be? A mad track / show car that can do it all, go on cruises, take it to shows, put the doors up and it'll look crazy? Or do we bring it back to how Toyota intended and make it just look totally stock as a lovely restoration? Again, you can take it to shows and you can take it on cruises and do all of that, but it doesn't have the performance. It's just a normal cruiser. I don't know what to do. The third option is I pull it to bits and break it, sell it for parts. I know there's people that need the glass, the doors. I know plenty of the Starlet and Glanza crowd will bite your hand off for the engine. And then things like headlights. The SLSS system is worth really good money because there's lots of people that don't have it. Interior trim, the wiring, everything is worth good money. But I'm writing option 3 off the list. That would be the smart thing to do because I could make the money back that I've put into the car buying it. But I couldn't bring myself to take another one of these cars off the road and scrap it. I couldn't do it. So option 3 is off the table. The smart option, the sensible option, not happening. So let me know what you think. Do we make it totally original or go full mental modifying the car? Now, if we're modifying it, I don't want it to be tacky. I don't want it to look like super crazy. I'm not going to go paint it neon yellow. I want it to be reasonably subtle. That's why I'm not going bolt-on fenders. I just want to mold them so it looks like something's up, but it doesn't look like I've made it in my garage, even though I have. That's basically what I'm trying to say. I don't want it to look homemade. I want it to look factory, but mental. So let me know what you think. If you have any suggestions, I'd be interested to see what you think. Do we keep it standard and have another standard one on the road, or do we use it as a base to make something really special? But anyway, I think that'll do for today. If you have any questions about the car or you want to see any more, or there's anything you want me to do with it, please let me know. That's all for me today. Make sure to subscribe. There probably won't be much on this car in the near future, but once we've got a couple of the other projects out of the way, we'll start to move on to this. It will be a long-term project. It's not something I can get done in a couple of months. It'll take a few years, but I think at the end of it, we'll have something really special. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that and you get to see the progress of all the projects. Next time, we'll be back with this, and I've decided we're getting started on that. So we will see some movement on that, but that's for another time. Thanks for watching. See you all.